Hey, folks. Wasn't that great? Ishika and Colin before that was a really nice panel right there. I really enjoyed that discussion. Hi, I'm Steven Stapczynski. I lead Bloomberg's Asia news coverage for energy. This is a very exciting panel today. We're going to be discussing AI and how that drives global, both energy demand, but also how it changes how we look at reaching really ambitious clean goals. Now, with me, I have Yee May Leong. She's the managing director for Southeast Asia for Equinix Singapore. Singapore. Yeah. For Singapore. And we have Giorgio Fortunato, head of clean energy and power at Google Asia Pacific.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you both being here with us today. Let's start with you, Yee May. I'm really curious. You're in the section of the AI, really in the center of the AI industry, both in terms of the needs for data centers and how the world is going to be viewing how the AI boom and more requirements for data center changes and shapes energy demand going forward.
Yes.
Now, what have you seen change over the last few years in terms of not just what you're asking from your suppliers of energy, but also how the industry is looking at how AI is driving energy demand going forward?
Yes, so thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. Equinix is the world's digital infrastructure, and we have over 250 data centers across the world. I think we clearly have been in business for over 25 years, and we started because Equinix really stands for equality, internet neutrality, internet exchange. Now, however, so we've always talked about digitalization, digital transformation, and that's kind of taken its path. You've had the .com era, and then you had the clouds, the online trading systems coming online, and then you had the clouds, and then now clearly you have AI right in front of us, right? So that's been a gradual adoption of digital across enterprises and companies coming online virtually, and and the cloud clearly is where it's housed in the data center, right? So you've had the retail, wholesale, and the hyperscalers. However, with AI, it's kind of just pushed that whole demand from what was a gradual to a hockey stick. And because of that, there's been a lot of investments that have gone behind building these huge data centers. So, in the last 18 months, we have seen grids around the world come to a halt because this demand clearly just was taken off the charts, and the grids can't cater to that amount of energy. So, digital is clearly going to continue. AI has clearly accelerated that growth for data center space, and because of that, powers have moved from megawatts to gigawatts, and that will continue, I believe, for a couple of years. But I think it will come down because there's so much capacity that's building right now, and the power, in many countries have actually completely stopped. Singapore basically called for a moratorium 3.5 years ago, right? And it was because the grids were equally full, and equally it was because it was to really contain carbon emissions and ensuring that Singapore meets its net zero plans.
I want to just pull up a chart now because I think this is a good segue. We have a chart here, AI drives a quadrupling of data center power demand in 10 years. Now this is from our colleagues at Bloomberg NEF. But what I find really striking about this is the breakup of where we're seeing the demand growth. I mean, clearly the United States and China are a big part of this. But Southeast Asia is a sliver at this moment. I mean, what's your take on that? Do you think that is that because of what we're talking about, where it doesn't have the capacity to really add a lot, or is there not much demand here for the data centers in general?
No, absolutely not. I think Southeast Asia is really growing in demand. And if you look at the ASEAN growth basin, right, there's going to be so much more demand with all this digital first entrance, and that's just going to grow. But I think the capacity demand, as Colin has mentioned earlier, that needs to put in place. That takes time.
Right.
Infrastructure takes time. Yeah. So there's definitely demand.
Thank you. And let's jump over to Giorgio real quick. Thank you for joining me today. I think when you look at what we've just talked about and we're looking at this demand growth, there's also the question of how do we achieve meeting the energy needs while also meeting our green goals. Google has some of the most ambitious green goals in the industry. Does this huge increase in energy demand put any of that at risk, or how are you kind of getting around those issues and those bottlenecks?
Thank you, Stephen. This is a really good question. Look, AI is one of the most transformative technologies in the world today. And our goal at Google is to help as many people as possible access this technology and benefit from the deployment of AI. Now, this is why the energy transition and the economic development are so strongly interlinked today. In order for us to realize that, we need energy. Mm-hmm. So we have witnessed, as you mentioned, an increase in our energy demand over the past few years. Only last year, our energy demand has increased by 27%.
Is this globally?
Globally.
27.
But now, what is the good news here? The good news is that at the same time, the emissions from our data center energy has gone down by 12%. So it's a really good news because we're proving that it is possible to increase our energy demand, but at the same time decrease our emissions. One is going up by 27%, the other one is going down by 12%. And let me just share how we are achieving this. Two main pillars. The first one, energy efficiency. We are striving to build the world's most efficient infrastructure. And compared to only 5 years ago, today we can deliver 6 times more compute power with the same amount of energy. Not 6% more, 6 times more.
Right.
So this is a massive gains that we are witnessing in the energy efficiency field.
Sorry, I'm just a follow-up question to that. That's really interesting. And do you think that some of the hype around the massive energy requirements for AI is somewhat overblown because of these efficiency gains?
I wouldn't know if I would put it that way, but definitely what is true is that energy efficiency over the past 20 years has offset the demand for electricity on the electricity grids. And today, electricity grids all over the world need to adjust and modernize and adapt to this new wave of demand. So this is really what we're seeing.
That's interesting. I mean, from Equinix's point of view, have you seen those similar sort of efficiency gains with your facilities?
Most definitely. We have targets set every year to reduce, improve our energy efficiency by at least 10%. So, over the last 5 years, we've improved that massively. And to George's point, we've used more, but we've equally been more efficient. So, and over time as well, technology is improving. We are also deploying AI sensors in our data center to monitor use so that we calibrate the operations to ensure that we're even more efficient. And there are also IT equipment now that's coming out that's more efficient. And we are also adopting the A1A standard where, we are increasing the temperatures of data center from what used to be 22 degrees right up to 32 degrees. So now, obviously, you can't jump from 22 to 32, but, gradually over time, with everything that we are doing, we definitely are squeezing more out of every megawatt that we use.
I mean, that's really fascinating. And using AI to increase your efficiencies, I mean, are we getting to the point where we're going to see AI manage this as well? One thing that I always think about is, would an AI be a great agent for the grid, right? You could manage demand response. Are we seeing that as well in data centers? Are you beginning to implement that, or is it still too early?
I think it's still too early right now, but the future with AI and robotics, it's anything is possible,
That's a great way to look at it. I'm very excited. Now, I want to just take a quick step into the world of politics very, very quickly. With Donald Trump being elected in the United States, there has been, to some degree, a de-emphasis on ESG, at least within the U.S. administration. Are we seeing, Giorgio, any sort of step back at Google when it comes to their ambitions to reduce emissions?
Well, I think our targets are there, 24/7 carbon-free energy. We are working towards meeting our energy demand every hour of every day with clean energy. It's no different in Asia. And here we are encouraged by a lot of the development that is happening around clean technologies and around regulations. Look, just a few years ago, it was impossible to sign clean energy power purchase agreements in many of the markets in APAC. And I was in India last week, and the levelized cost of electricity for solar is actually already below the cheapest alternative. Mm-hmm. So, and that is the way we can make sustainability sustainable and grow even further. So I think our focus is really to understand what are the technologies that are part of our portfolio for the future and scaling those technologies so that we can meet our demand with clean energy.
I'll get to those technologies in a minute, but I just want to again focus, Southeast Asia, are you able to, because as you said, there are some countries that you still can't get power purchase agreements. How does that affect your targets, your green targets? If you're not able to secure the energy, does that risk putting off your green goals?
It's an opportunity to bring that investment into the market and to work together with many of the stakeholders, whether it is developers, financiers, government, to actually make that transition happen faster and in the most effective way.
And I mean, yes, saying that, of course, that's what we want. But in reality, are you seeing any difficulties doing that?
Oh yeah, it's challenging, of
right.
course. We acknowledge the challenge of doing that. Look, across APAC, we have been working to tailor solutions to the different markets where we operate. These markets are all different to each other.
Right.
When you look at Japan, for example, there is not a lot of space to develop utility scale
right.
solar. So what we have done is we have aggregated the supply from very small projects to supply for our data center in Inzai 40 megawatt. In Taiwan, the problem is the lack of supply. Mm-hmm. There's not enough supply. So we have made a capital investment to accelerate and develop a 1 gigawatt pipeline of solar projects. That's a massive amount of power. And together with that, we have invested in offshore wind and we have invested in geothermal. Mm-hmm. So we are looking at, okay, what else can be done in the different markets where we operate? Australia and India, other good example. These are cloud regions for us. So we've worked with partners to create innovative structures, contracting structures that allow them to go out and procure clean energy on our behalf. Mm-hmm. It's a mix of wind and solar, for example, in India, where we have this hybrid project. So it's really like tailoring the solutions to all the different unique circumstances of the market where we operate. That's how we are approaching it.
That's a fun job, isn't it? That sounds really exciting. Now, I just want to open this up to the audience real quick for a quick question. I think we're going to throw it up here. You can use this QR code, I think, to vote. Very quickly, what will most shape Asia's energy mix as AI expands? We gave you 4 potential answers: AI-driven efficiency gains, data center energy demand, policy and energy security needs, as well as investment in renewables. Now, Yee May, I'm just going to pose that to you. What do you think? How would you answer this question here?
I think Asia's energy mix as it demands, clearly, if I look at ASEAN, and Singapore's been really pushing the envelope on this front.
Yeah.
Solar is clearly the obvious one. But hydrogen has been talked about, but the reality of it happening is still a long way. And clearly then there's gas, LNG gas, and CCS, carbon capture. And, recently Singapore's just also launched the CFA2, and for the green energy transition options that we'll be looking at, it's really ammonia, the ammonia pilot that Singapore wants to run, as well as bioenergy. So I think all this is also going to spur a lot of activity in the region. And then clearly Singapore's also talking about solar imports, so that's going to create investments in the other countries that will start by exporting, but then at the end of the day, they will also start using. So, I think these are all the possible scenarios. And of course, there's SMR. From an Equinix point of view, we have invested in Oklo, 500 megawatts, that would be advanced fission technology. Clearly, countries need to ensure that risks are mitigated. But that's one of the cleanest sources of energy.
But when we talk about nuclear SMR for use in Singapore and Southeast Asia, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
And what's the time frame? I mean, this is probably not a 2030 sort of thing, right?
No, I think there's hope that within the next 8 to 10 years that can happen, because there's so much work that's being done in Singapore now to talk about how you de-risk, right? And how to then implement it safely.
I mean, do you think that these projects require big corporations to sign PPAs and things like that to support? I mean, you saw what happened with 3 Mile Island. 3 Mile Island received a giant power purchase agreement from Microsoft, yes. And that was big news, and that helped, that helps fund that retrofit there.
Yes.
Should we be seeing tech companies in this region step up and do this as well?
I think government regulations will help drive some of that.
Yeah.
Like I said, the Singapore government is definitely pushing the envelope on that. So it's like, what? If you want data center capacity in Singapore, you have to be green. So, that kind of pushes enterprises to start really being more responsible. But from an Equinix point of view, we've always adopted a future-first strategy since 2015, and we are really already 96% renewable around the world.
Oh, wow. That's an impressive figure there. I want to go to this poll very quickly. We got the figures up here. You can read it behind me. It looks like the folks in the audience say that it's data center energy demand that will shape Asia's mix as AI expands, and also policy and energy security needs. Clearly, we just talked about policy right now. Now, we just started a small discussion on SMR and nuclear. Giorgio, I want to throw it over to you. I know that there are a lot of different, so I'm going to clump SMR and advanced energy technologies. And I know Google is very much looking at a wide spectrum. In Asia, what do you think makes sense? Do SMRs make sense in Southeast Asia for you folks, or what are you looking at?
That's true, Stephen. It really ties into the broader perspective of different technologies. And we're working on a portfolio, on a broad portfolio, as broad as possible, of different technologies, because that's the fastest and the most effective way to decarbonize the grids where we operate. And let me explain. We have, of course, mature renewable energy technologies. We have wind, we have solar. These technologies, especially when you look at Asia, we believe that there is still a lot of untapped potential. Yeah. These technologies can be maximized further. But see, like the wind is not blowing every time, the sun is not shining every time, right? So we also need energy storage. We need a portfolio of advanced clean technologies, firm technologies that can complement the gaps in generation. And that is how we can achieve the 24/7 profile we talked about before. In Asia in particular, we see geothermal. We have invested in geothermal in Taiwan, where we have investment and offtake agreement. Of course, it's more than the initial capacity. Mm-hmm. It's about planting a seed, sending a signal, and to support these technologies which meet a lot of obstacles, especially at the beginning, in order to scale to commercial operations. We have done something with biomass as well here in Singapore, where we use the waste wood from the logistics industry and from the horticultural waste to actually provide clean energy for our operations in Singapore. So, the mix of the two, advanced clean technologies and traditional renewable energy technologies, will be what we are working towards. Look, if we do this right, we will be able to, first of all, decarbonize the grids where we operate faster and most effectively, and second, rely on fossil fuels for less than we need. So that's how it fits into this picture, yes.
And I guess, when you look at, I'm trying to just understand for Google and for your operations, where are the more challenging regions? Is Asia among the most challenging region to decarbonize?
It's absolutely one of the most challenging parts of the world, especially certain markets. And I also would like to say, Asia is a very broad.
Of course, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So we have markets where it's easier to procure clean energy, where it's most cost effective. We have markets where the regulatory frameworks, the current regulatory frameworks are still, need still to mature. And so
I mean, let's get into it. Like, which ones do you think are the challenging ones that do need to kind of push the envelope?
Yeah. Look, I think Taiwan has been a challenging one for what I mentioned before on the lack of supply available. And so this is why, we have the demand response going on. We have the offshore wind, we have the geothermal, we have the solar. And our role has really evolved from being an off-taker to being technology catalyzer, to invest in new projects. There's an entire spectrum of things that we're doing today that maybe we weren't doing in our traditional role as an energy buyer, as an energy off-taker. And so I think that's really an inspiring part of what we're doing.
Yeah, and to add to that, Giorgio, don't you agree that at the end of it is really demand and supply, right? Absolutely. As the demand increases, the supply will happen. Like right now in some of these markets, it's very expensive. That's the other thing. So it's a little bit prohibitive. But, I think companies are stepping up for their ESG goals. I don't think the companies that have committed have not done that, have not decreased it despite the current administration. So I am optimistic. I mean, I sure hope that, as the keynote speaker said just now, by 2025, we actually start a decline. I think that would be the light at the end of the tunnel we all see, right? Given all the decisions that we've taken in the last couple of years and focus on sustainability.
I mean, I think we've talked a lot in the last 20 minutes about what companies are doing, kind of pushing the envelope. Are we in a place where you are seeing? I mean, obviously, in the last 5 years, we have seen companies step up, sign PPAs, underpin technology. When are we going to get to the point, at least in Southeast Asia, where these companies with their green goals are in the driver's seat, and it's not something that we have to depend so much on policy and government? Or does it never go that way? Is it more you have to go hand in hand in this entire kind of road?
I would say it has to go hand in hand. I think for Equinix, we've made a commitment to be net zero. And clearly government regulation will help that enforcement, that across the sector equally everybody comes to join the party. And if all of us do, the energy, green energy transition options will be made more available. So, that demand increases and that supply increases and everybody wins.
How do you feel about that?
It definitely has to go hand in hand.
Yeah.
We are working hand in hand with government, with developers, but also with peers, with our partners. We are a founding member of Asia Clean Energy Coalition that is working to improve the energy, to create more conducive environments for clean energy. We work with the Semi Energy Collaborative, we work with SIBA. And so, I think it's really bringing that opportunity and realizing that as the energy demand keeps growing, energy efficiency and clean energy will be the key enabler to deliver the AI value. And so working hand in hand with governments to realize that.
And you still, I mean, kind of going back on your point, you still think there are a lot of low-hanging fruit in terms of deploying just traditional solar and wind?
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
even in a place like Singapore, there's still more potential to maximize that.
Well, in Singapore is a bit tight.
Right.
You know, I mean, there's only so many rooftops we can kind of plaster
Right.
solar panels on, right? Which is why Singapore is taking that creative, long vision outlook on looking at other energy options.
And also importing, right? I think you mentioned importing.
And also import. And you know, don't forget, right? I think the other one that is nearby is the Sarawak hydro opportunity, which the government, Singapore government, has also been talking a lot to. Yeah.
So in a way, I mean, do you see Singapore, at least in the region, as a leader of pushing this forward?
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, I think Singapore's intent is to play a lead role for the ASEAN market, you know, and clearly Singapore has interests because our resources here are tight. But you know, I think Singapore wins and the region wins.